All right. Almost 4 p.m. Well, let's say a bit after 4 p.m. So with this German punctuality, I think we probably need to work on that a bit. But well, our apologies for being slightly late. But as they say, better late than never. We are back with another episode of PKs on Air. At least it's Tuesday, even though not entirely 4 p.m. But hey, and we are also back with, I would say, two familiar faces. With me, as always, none other than my fantastic co-host, Dominique. Dominique,
Hello.
how are you doing today? Hello.
I'm
All
doing
good?
well. Yeah, all good. I think it's a perfect timing to talk a bit about Black Friday and e-commerce because we are currently into first preparations for Black Friday in social content. So, yeah, perfect timing, I would say. Yeah. How about you? How are you?
All good. I'm freezing right now. It's insanely it got insanely cold, and I'm like, I really feel a bit like, I don't know what, but it's cold. Like ever since like the last 3 days, I'm just freezing. So I'm even wearing a jacket, which is rarely happening, as you know. Normally it's just a kind of the t-shirt and that's about it. But like no, I was like, this is not gonna do today. But other than that, I think all good. As you said, lots of things going on. Black Friday craziness is getting to its peak, I would say. I mean, I guess preparations are already running for quite a bit, but which is, I think, also a bit of the topic for today. I think we can share a couple of things that we are doing, discuss a couple of posts that came out quite recently. There were some things that Google announced. There were some other blog posts that I came across that I think are worth sharing, because I think for most of the folks that somewhat are dealing with e-commerce, there's at least, sometimes more, sometimes less, but stuff going on around Black Friday. And additionally, I think it's not only about Black Friday per se, but because I think it's more like seasonal SEO or seasonal organic search, if you so will, because there's a whole bunch of other occasions where almost the same applies, I would say. So I think it's a good topic because, again, Christmas season coming up, there's some timing potentially around Christmas as well, and then there's other occasions to celebrate, even though we're not in a year to celebrate a lot of things, but I think, those are still in the calendar anyhow. So that's, I think it should be valuable. Before we do that, I think we can quickly at least remind you of a couple of brief things. So a bit of housekeeping there as well. I just put them in here. So the show notes from last week's episode, pa.ag/notes, where we also put a brief recap, and I think most importantly, the links that we discussed or that we kind of covered during the show. And that, of course, is also going to happen this week. So I will be we will be sharing them with you. Also have like one or two slides where I quickly want to give you a bit of an idea of how we're dealing with certain things from a more technical SEO perspective. So I think we focus on that for this week. Before we get into it, because I have it on my bi-weekly reminder, Dominique, what's going on with the reading list?
I knew it.
I'm still waiting for going on. Episode. So we need a Christmas topic, and I think that would be a perfect topic to do before Christmas, actually.
Okay, so we have now 6 weeks to Christmas. Could work.
Okay.
I have I started with 6 books at the same time, but finished nothing. I had 3 days off last week, but I was completely into just sleeping and watching or binge watching on Netflix, and so I didn't make it. But until Christmas could be possible.
Could be realistic, you think? Oh yeah, well, I'm gonna ask in 2 weeks. We see what the progress is.
Please keep reminding me. Yeah, please.
I will. No worries. I will. Absolutely.
Great.
I think also there's as always, please feel free to post questions. I'm already seeing the first ones coming in. So Dominique is going to take care of the questions. I'm like pop over to the other window, share like my screen with you as well. But I think please keep them coming. We should be live. I just saw that we have some issues with LinkedIn, so I don't know what's going on there. But other than that, Facebook, YouTube, of course, Twitch, etc. So Twitter, let us know, please feel free to post, ask questions, leave us comments. We are always happy to get a bit of feedback, not only feedback, but also interact with you guys, obviously. So just drop them in, and we'd be covering along as we go. So I will bring up the other screen and see if this actually does work, but I hope it does. Yeah.
Looks
so
good.
I mean, just for me as a reminder, because I always forget the date, I think that's not the screen that I wanted to discuss. So what I want to start out with is actually a blog post that I came across, and I think we also mentioned it already in our last week's episode, but only very briefly to the end, that actually Google themselves released, and where they are talking a bit about best practices for Black Friday. Again, I think this equally might apply for other like seasonal things. I think from my perspective, and maybe you can add along the way, Dominique, like I think from my perspective, the biggest issue obviously with the seasonal stuff is timing, right? And I think timing, especially organic, is really hard because, well, sometimes you can only influence certain things so much, right? So let's say, and I recall we've been working in some very competitive industries, which is a bit of a different story, but like, for example, car insurance in Germany, and this is also, I'm quite sure, similarly true in other markets, has its peak in November. So essentially, like in October, the insurance companies kind of send out like their notes in regards to what are the fees going to be, are the fees going up? And then you have this extra thing where you can cancel because of the change in the tariff structure, basically, right? And so for car insurance in Germany, you need to be there by the 1st of November. If you're not there, you're essentially losing out this season. And this season is not a day, but it's a bit longer, but still it's the same, right? And I think what I'm trying to say, especially if it's not only about on-site changes necessarily, like getting content live, and even though I know, and I guess that's the same experience that you guys have, even that can be a challenge in larger complex organizations. Publishing, approval, I suppose, was something that we kind of ran into a couple of times. But basically thinking about timing is probably the biggest thing, and then starting very early on. And if you only start building a campaign now, I think I would probably argue already way too late, because that's almost, well, except in smaller, very fast organizations, that might be very tight. So I think timing is the biggest issue. Also, if you want to like even consider things such as like links, right? Because they also need to be recrawled. They need to be somewhat being recognized by Google. They need to be factored into, the algorithm and whatnot. So, that's very hard to time sometimes. I guess that's the biggest things. And I think this is also how the blog post, coming back to what Google published, what Google started out with is saying, create the page early, right? So, well before the sale, so that they can discover it, that they can index it. Of course, that you can also, the example they gave is like not blocking it from crawling. I think this could be one problem, but it can also be, a variety, I would just say, of other technical things that can go wrong, right? That can be basic stuff. I don't know, forgot to add the metadata and then it's indexed wrong, or, robots text directives broken, or canonical text, whatever. That can be a whole variety. So basically the entire spectrum of on-site SEO potentially could be a miss or could be broken, I guess, either way. So I think getting it early on, getting it published live early on, and then have the time to debug, to test, to ensure that they can crawl it. And then, of course, you can, so what Google mentioned here is the URL inspection tool. That's true for testing. My next point would have been, and I think that's a bit later here, like when I say get the page recrawled or get the page discovered. But since we're talking about discovery here anyways, I mean, of course, at least you have the ability to then add the page, for example, to, you know, an XML sitemap so that they then potentially can discover it faster. Sadly, the Search Console tool is still in suspension, so it's not there. You can't use it. So they submit to index part at least. I think yesterday I saw actually even that John Mueller on Twitter posted a survey asking for if you really, or if we as the community really want the tool back, and what we might be using it for. So it sounds a bit like, well, maybe it's not even coming back, which would be a shame. So yeah, we're gonna share that link as well. I don't have it open, but like, make sure that you vote, make sure that you tell them that we need this damn tool back, because I think it's really handy. But anyways, at least, I mean, for discoverability, you have a sitemap, and also, of course, and that is coming down a bit later, is if you link it prominently. So I just skip the other second thing first, but like if you link it prominently from the homepage, right, then it increases prominence. Therefore, the chance to get it discovered is obviously way higher, right? Yeah. Another really interesting thing, and I'm actually glad they mentioned it here, because we had this with a very large retailer, I recall, in the past, mainly for Christmas season in this case, but they were basically not reusing an existing URL, but they were recreating that damn Christmas URL every season. And of course, there was no history to it. Google couldn't establish any kind of baseline. They couldn't collect any like CTR data in advance. There was no historic data. So that was really, really annoying. So reoccurring URL scheme is something that we also definitely would recommend. So get rid of like the years or like even months or wherever you tend to put it from the URL structure. You don't need it. You can still customize it on a title or on a copy, and of course, I suppose at the end of the day on the content level, but don't include it into the URL. Just make it generic, as shown here, like just Black Friday, Christmas, whatever.
Valentine's Day,
exactly, whatever the season is.
This is what I've seen so many times, especially in the beauty sector, to be honest. So many providers or online shops for beauty and like everything in terms of cosmetics, they provide, or many of them, like every year a new landing page for Valentine's Day, for Black Friday, for Christmas, for whatever, for Easter offers, and it just doesn't make sense. And what I've seen in so many cases, it really goes hand in hand with create the page early. We have the same problem here, right? So if you need to set up everything from scratch from year to year for exactly the same topic, where you mainly just need to update like offers or also landing page copy, it could be the case, and we already also faced it during the last years with some clients, that it's sometimes not possible to create and get them live as early as possible. And then we have the problem with having like 2 landing pages with exactly the same topic. We have no chance to build up like those static rankings and whatever. So I think that's a very huge tip here for using.
And as you said, especially if the URL already existed at some point, oftentimes it's easier because you can kind of maybe circumvent like the publishing process, or just get around some of the approvals, etc. That works equally for all days. Speaking of days in general, so Mark had a question and said, well, what do you guys think about single day or Singles Day as far as the European area goes? Do you think it has the potential in the long term, just as Black Friday, right? And for those that are not familiar with Singles Day, or Single Day, it's basically the crazy shopping event over in China, which, if I'm not totally mistaken, is tomorrow. I think 11th of November. So super important for Chinese businesses, Chinese market in general. Alibaba always has absolutely insane numbers, and I think also the entirety of what's happening there is kind of how it's being celebrated is absolutely insane. So for those that don't know it, it's worth watching like this whole spectacle. I think, well, right now, at least from what we see, I would say, maybe you have an addition to that, Domi, but like I think in Europe, as of now, it's not many companies that make much use of that, to be honest. I mean, even the Black Friday thing, speaking for the German region or European region, that took quite a while, right? Before like everyone kind of got used to what that actually is, etc. So I would think maybe, but that would need a significant push also from like the European market. And right now it feels like that they don't really care much, and it's sole Chinese play. What's your take on that? Have you seen different things, or is it, would you say, well, yes, no? What's your take?
Pretty much the same, I would say. I think it's not, well, I have the feeling that it's not that established yet, at least in Europe, or at least in Germany. What I've seen, or the only industry where I see that pretty strong, is also here, like cosmetics and everything in terms of makeup and beauty products. They have seen a lot of special offers and a lot of advertisement before during the last days, like also Singles Week, where they extended a lot of offers with the angle of or like Singles Day in terms of do something for yourself, love yourself. So that's a major tonality there, I would say. I'm not sure if that has anything to do why people or why companies more in the cosmetics industry care about the Singles Day in Germany, but the rest I think it's not that established until now. I think.
Well, sadly you can't really see it well here, but there's and I'm gonna share the real statistic later on as well. But there's a Statista survey that's basically awareness of Singles Day among consumers in selected European countries, and so excuse the overlay, I don't have the login at hand, but basically what it says is that it says that they questioned like a number of respondents, which is like roughly 4,000 shoppers basically, and then there's a breakdown of countries, and it says, for example, in Germany the awareness 2019 was like 19% knew about that event, and this year it's 21.3, and it's the same thing for most European countries. So like France 14.3 2019, 16.6 2020, Spain 8.5 to 11.2, etc. So if you take the average of European countries, the awareness of that small, of course, pool, but has been going up by 2.5%, which is actually not too bad. So I think what you are saying is true. It's potentially increasing over time, but it will take some.
Yeah.
All right, so let's. I hope that answered our take. So let's move on with the blog post. I think that would make sense. So coming back to the Google thing. The recurring topic or the recurring URL we talked about. I think the other thing that really stood out to me, and I think we talked about that a bit last time, is the relevancy around imagery. So they say like provide a static image with up-to-date representation of your sales. So up-to-date product imagery in this case, and then they specifically talk a bit about optimization potential. So we're not going to go too much into this one, but I think what it says is, yes, do high quality images, but don't go crazy on the imagery without actually understanding how to optimize that stuff further, right? I think this is what it is. So some really good advice in here that came straight from the search relations team. And then there's another post which I quickly want to mention here as well, it's again from Google, so it's on the Think with Google side actually. And what it does is it's really a bit more from, it covers things a bit more from, and I zoom in a bit so it might be a bit easier to see.
Yeah. Thank you.
Fantastic. So this is more of the take from the Middle East and North African region, and talking about that it's growing and getting bigger in MENA. But this is not so much. This is of course interesting, but I think what's really interesting is if you kind of go through the post. I'm not going to cover all of that, but it's kind of more talking about the stages of like how to deal with an event such as Black Friday or any like decision day, if you so will, because that's what's really happening, right? A lot of people are not only taking the decision at the same day, but the journey towards that purchase might start way earlier, right? Because someone decides I want to kind of go and find a certain product and buy a certain product in whenever, whatever time, and then just waits for that specific event to be happening. So you basically, your job is to inform them beforehand, potentially. So that might be, and I think this is a lot of what your teams are doing as well, right? So doing content creation tailored and of course tied to an event, but then be there early enough and drive this decision to actually do the purchase at the time, right?
Yep, exactly. I mean, at least, or even more, if the involvement in buying that kind of product is higher, the more important it is to build up like the pre-awareness period. Yeah. I mean, for instance, like Dyson products, they're like a bit pricey, like a bit more pricey than buying any kind of I don't know, cosmetic products. Yeah. It makes totally sense, or it's super crucial to build up like the awareness pretty much before. And there we are back on talking about landing pages and also there having content there before the actual day happens, right? In order to, I don't know, to have something like lead gens or build up your email list or whatever. So I think, also here, completely right. The period, or there are different kind of stages when we talk about Black Friday. It's not only one day or like 2 days before. It's also like weeks and months maybe before of preparation. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, and this is like what it talks about, right? So it's talking about like the kind of, they call it the 3 phases of Black Friday, but I guess again, like 3 phases in general. So like there's kind of this build up phase that you just covered. I said, well, it's where even the decision might not be tied to a specific brand. So there might not even be, if we just stay for the sake of it with the Dyson example, maybe they just want to buy that device in general, but without knowing if it's a vacuum cleaner of Dyson or Miele or whatever that is, right? And then kind of the 2 weeks leading up to it is what they call the craze. So this is when it gets much more intense. Potentially you have made up your mind, you look for more specific products and or brands, right? And then of course it's kind of the what they call the last call. So it's quite interesting phase, which then is more like, okay, either you missed something or you get like a discount afterwards because for whatever reason you couldn't decide on buying it yourself. So I think this is what they kind of go through here with, then you could use things such as remarketing, depending on where you start collecting the data points or where you start tying them together. So it's a really, really cool post actually, which gives a bit of an overview. I'll just continue on scrolling, because also what's interesting is that sometimes phases are a bit different, and then sometimes it's just piggybacking on one product to utilize one product, and then actually use that as kind of the, well, let's say, door opener, and then the consumers will potentially be adding other products to the shopping cart, which are not necessarily equally high discounted, so those kind of things. That post is really it's really cool and really helpful. I wasn't aware that they published that, but it only came out this year. So a whole bunch of statistics, some tools, preparation, and what you can do. So I found this really, really valuable, I have to say, and I think it's good and I think this is also a thing that we have been talking about a lot lately. So tying in channels with each other, and not have just one kind of isolated view. What is a couple of things? I mean, you working on, as you said, on some of the campaigns right now, of course, in terms of execution. So is there anything that you saw it's fundamentally different from last year? Anything that where you were like, that's interesting, I haven't seen that? Anything that comes to mind, or is it essentially the same story?
I must say, on a content perspective, I would say it's pretty much the same for us. So we didn't saw any kind of fundamental differences from the last year. I think like days like or awareness days like Black Friday are even more important this year, of course. But I think the tone of voice or everything around that is not that much different, and also not the strategies over here. So I couldn't see that much differences this year, to be honest. Yeah.
Okay, fair enough. There was another great post that I actually discovered through the fantastic newsletter of Aleda, which Luke Carthy wrote, and he kind of, put together top five tips for high performing campaigns, and yeah, it's worth going through it. We're not gonna go through everything, but there's a bunch of interesting things, so I spare you with the intro. But what's really interesting is that, so again, probably in Germany, not familiar with them, but like Curry's PC World is a household name, as he says. So electronics, and then they have this nice looking Black Friday's deals landing page. I think especially in electronics, I mean, literally everyone does that. And what he does, and this is kind of interesting, a lot of companies, for whatever reason, don't integrate, and this is just one example, and I'll show you the other one. I think it was the same. So that was Curry's, and then there's Burton. Again, they have like this Black Friday landing page. They even ask you, which I found also quite nice, actually, if you were early, like they ask you to send out like Black Friday specific email updates. So I think this is actually quite smart. But again, and this is, you can see it here, like search for Black Friday yields a blank search result page. So like both companies kind of forgot to tie in internal site search because, it's not a regular product and it's some kind of special page. But of course, when people come to your site, they don't find it instantly. They search for Black Friday, they don't find your landing page. I mean, this is kind of a missed out opportunity. So I found that a quite worthwhile mentioning, or topic worthwhile mentioning. And then in the summary, there's some of the things we already discussed, actually. So I think it's quite good that, what we all have the same take on it from a tech perspective. So Luke was also saying, like, reuse the same Black Friday URL every year. And he said it, I said it, we said it. I hope at some point it happens. But yeah, so Black Friday URL reusage or campaign URL reusage is probably one thing. Then he's also talking about retargeting. So this is kind of the same point that I just made, what is also in the Google post and the second one. So, not only is he saying, like, that have not just with the Black Friday page, but also, engaged in a meaningful way in general, which I think makes a lot of sense. So, and it goes back to what we were saying, right? You need to start early enough, because if you want to build out those lists, then if you don't collect enough data in the beginning, it's just too small. So yeah, I think that's interesting, and a good comment on this. This I found also quite funny, and the more I thought about it, the more I was like, yeah, so true. Like, discount codes should really be case insensitive. It's super frustrating because, well, sometimes you just copy them from somewhere and then they're all lowercase, and now they need to be uppercase and no one understands it. And it's like a huge frustration. And then sometimes I had it yesterday, actually, a bit of a different story. I wanted to do I wanted to send a PayPal through a PayPal me link. So it was PayPal me / name, and then the name had 2 uppercase letters in it, but it only works if you type it in all lowercase. But on the website, they had it linked with the uppercase letters, and I was going crazy and couldn't understand why I couldn't execute the transfer, because PayPal then says, well, we don't understand, we don't recognize this profile. And so I wanted to donate to a charity, actually, and I was just really pissed because I couldn't figure out why it didn't work. So super frustrating. And the same, I think, is true for discount codes. So I think good tip here: make sure that they just work either way.
Yeah.
And then number 4 that you put up was have your own discount code page to reduce affiliate commission payouts during the big event. Which is a smart thing, I have to say. It's not only true, though, for seasonal events. I would argue that that's something that all retailers should be doing anyways, because, of course, a big chunk of queries is something like brand name discount codes, brand name discount 2020 or year number or whatever. And of course, like if you don't do it, then the affiliate portals will come up, because they will collect it from the networks or from the affiliates themselves. I think it's not only, as he's saying, from affiliates, but also from like the voucher code portals, right? So I would rather have my own landing page there and then either optimize it for, something like that, or, at the end of the day, I've seen that a couple of times, that then you don't get a voucher code, but what you are is actually you buying a voucher code for someone, like that's probably not the intention, but at least you're ranking there. So that might be something worthwhile at least considering. But either way, I guess both works, and it takes away a bit of like the potentially unnecessary payout. So I found that a quite smart one. And this is also really cool. I've been seeing it a couple of times, but I mainly noticed this more last year, I think, especially in Germany, or like the markets that I look closer to also when I buy my own things online. But what he says is like, consider extending your return windows to cover making Christmas gift purchases, right? And that's actually quite smart, because, well, if you only have like very short return frames, then that might not work. So you might be missing out on those that actually want to buy it for Christmas. But for whatever reason, it could be clothes where they're not sure that they fit, or could be any other type of gift where they're like maybe potentially unsure if that person really wants that. So I suppose that's actually a cool thing to do that.
Cool approach,
quite clever to kind of allow more volume and then take. And I think the other thing that I want to add here, because it's not entirely clear, is that you need to talk about it, right? This is what you're saying all the time. It's great that you do it, but if no one knows,
exactly.
that's also nice, but it's not going to help. So I think you need to be very upfront in the communication, not only like in the flow, but even potentially in the early stages of the build up, right? Because I think it can also be a USP in the build up itself, in the content campaigns, etc.
That's what I was on wanted to say, because I mean, at the end, like Black Friday is like, there are so many offers and discounts everywhere, and I think at the end of the day, it's super important to have a USP, and your USP should not be, or the way of communication should not be, hey, we have something like special deals on Black Friday, because this is not surprising at all, right? But something like returning periods is like something maybe not everybody is doing. I think some of those points are in that article as well.
So this is the other one, exactly. It's actually Luke also wrote a really nice article last year, where he's covering some of the points. Like the intro is a bit more basic, so I spare you that because we covered most of that. But he's also talking about the experience in general, reducing bounce rates or abandonment, either way. Then same story, reusing URLs, benefits of that, make it available very early. We talked about that. This is also interesting. It goes a bit back to the question earlier from Mark, who was asking, like, could the single day potentially be something that's tagging along with Black Friday? And this is then now a bit more like Black Friday, working along with Cyber Monday, which could be like another of those event days. So I think it goes a bit back to something that I probably should have said at the beginning, but I just kind of forget, was like, I think an event calendar, as you guys are doing it for content campaigns, around like those specific events that you want to do, and then see what the overlap is and where you can tie in, probably makes sense, right? So what are you using for like calendar planning anyways, right now? What's your recommendation on go-to?
For like editorial planning? It's a mixture, to be honest. So we have like, I love to work with Excel, but everybody else hates it. So I'm trying to do everything in Excel, because there are a lot of good opportunities. And what else are we doing? So what we use for many projects is like the planning tool from Microsoft Teams. like the integrated planning tool, which is super great. I love it. Where you also can match your Kanban board with your calendar, and have like different layers, which is pretty great. So this is something I could suggest definitely, but also Excel, of course.
Of course. Everyone loves a good spreadsheet, right? Yeah. The last thing that I want to kind of mention, because it's also in here, and then I have a bit of a quick follow-up that I kind of want to show you guys, is that, once it has been sold out, like it being an item, don't disable the product page, is what Luke is suggesting. So he says, well, you'd be like dramatically reducing the chances of being able to sell them in an alternative option, which I totally agree. And I think the other point here is, disabling or deleting the page without redirect would kill inbound links, which is very much true. So I agree, and I think it's potentially even a bit more complex than just that, but the reasons are entirely valid, and I would say this is very much true. So what I'm gonna do in a second, I just need to flip the screen here for a second, is I just want to quickly show one slide from presentation. 1 second. Screen share. Yep. Where is it? Too many windows. I think it might be this one.
Yep, it's there.
Yeah. So it's kind of an idea of how you could deal with out of stock situations, and this is again, this is more generic, but certainly can be applied to Black Friday or any seasonal events, really. So as Luke was already saying and suggesting in his article, and again, I totally agree, the worst idea is to just delete the page, right? This is something that you certainly don't want to do. So of course you can, once you keep it and it's sold out and it's not coming back, you can suggest an alternative, right? And you should suggest an alternative. That can be, the same product, different color, different size, potentially even a different variation of it, right? So that could be one of the redirect targets potentially. It could be a successor product, right? Because if the one is sold out, then maybe you have the newer one still in stock. So a successor could be. It could also be something just similar in that regard. So maybe you have something for whatever reason in the same product group, or like by an alternative vendor, even if you're selling multi-brand. And I think the last resort, if it comes down to redirecting, could still be like the internal site search. So you kind of pass that query from the original product detail page where someone ended up to, and then take that and submit it to the site search. What I'm a big fan of, though, is like I would always tell people that. So basically, have kind of a layer or any kind of visual feedback that says, well, this is not there anymore. And in this case, I would probably do it season specific, but like this is not available during Black Friday anymore for whatever reason. And then you give them at least a chance to do something else with it. And I think the right side, like with, deleting and whatnot, is not relevant in this case, and that rarely happens. But of course, if you do not need it anymore, if there's no related products, if there's nothing else, of course that can go, but only if there's no links, no traffic and whatnot. So specific for Black Friday, I would say this is probably the worst you can do. I would either do redirects, or I would do any kind of alternative variation based on that. I think this probably is, at least, well, ideally it's not selling out, right? But like ideally that's the case. But if it's the case, then I think that's a good way to deal with that. And then there is one more thing that I quickly want to share, which I also found quite nice. I just need to flip back the screen. 1 sec. There we go. There's an article by our friends over at Yoast, which is called holiday season SEO. So I think this is kind of what I was saying as well. A lot of the stuff is really applicable for a multitude of events. So and this is also what they kind of do here, is like going more through like the shopping season in general, and then again it kind of comes back to the same thing. So we have the prep time with like some recommendations on time frames. We have those they talk about like gift pages, so essentially set them up early in advance, etc. Right? So this is like a really thorough post. It talks a bit about promotion as well as like canned posts. So like have them pre-done, get them scheduled in advance, etc. So you can use that season also to kind of introduce new products. Then of course some technical things, like structured data, reusing content. We talked about this now a couple of times. So is it going to be like the date in the URL or not? I guess you now are familiar with the answer. Some of the things that I've been covering in other episodes, like speed, obviously being one of the things, especially I think on high load events, it's super important that you're not, that the servers are not breaking. I think this is absolutely crucial, and I think you need to be aware that of course server load on those like with those peaks is even higher. So I think there's a bunch of things in here. Also a bit about reporting and then how to deal with the content and the stuff after. So I think it's a really nice post. A bit more generic than just talking about Black Friday, but I think it ties in nicely and can prepare like a site also for seasonal events in general. I would say. Yeah. So this is kind of really, really cool. Yeah, and I think this is actually kind of the post that I at least wanted to what I wanted to share, because there was a whole bunch of I think really cool infos in there. I think again, like if I would need to come up with just a single recommendation, I think it's just in advance planning, or be in there early enough, because also I think what we didn't talk about yet is the competition, right? Because of course we will have it way harder, right?
Yeah, definitely. So that's what I wanted to say a bit earlier when I talked about like the way of communication, and that you need your special USPs. And I think that's one of the major points. I mean, planning in advance, I mean, it's crucial for seasonal events, for everything. And I think using the element of surprise is one of the next major points here. So even if it's with the offer you have, or if it's the way of communication. So I mean, there are different aspects, I would say. I mean, there's something like you can do something with gamification stuff on social media to collect your, I don't know, to collect like email addresses or whatever, in order to inform the most huge audience as possible before the event happens, in order to use those pre-awareness phase, right? And what I've seen there as well, I cannot remember where I've seen it, but that was something I found super interesting. It was about out of stock products. For super hyped products, which were out of stock for months. And what the company does or did is like keeping or reordering those products and bring it back to Black Friday. I mean, not with a discount code, but to drive traffic or bring traffic to the website in order to have them there and get them then afterwards with like special offers especially for Black Friday. Bringing a lot of attention there because the products were super high. I think it was something like, it was a sneakers, any kind of limited super special sneaker, whatever. And that was super successful, I guess, because it was a very creative approach. It was not only we give you something for free or we give you something a bit cheaper. It was like we bring back a super special product, and then on our website you can collect or decide or see all the other offers we have. So this is something I found super interesting. And
that makes total sense. It's a smart idea, actually.
Yeah. So, and I think, of course, keeping in mind that Black Friday is always like the beginning of the pre-Christmas period, right? So I think that that could be also super possible in terms of communication. So this is what I've seen not that many times. I mean, the major communication or way of communication is about pricing and like discounts and everything around that. But especially now, where Christmas period starts, of course, obviously, I think it could be also a good plan to communicate on a way of Christmas, especially on Black Friday, in order to like start to order your Christmas presents actually now for a better price, so that the point is not like the price, but start to collect your Christmas presents very stress-free, better than the year before, because everybody does the same mistake every year. Everybody buys or collect the Christmas presents for our relatives too late, right? So this could be something.
And I think if you, as you said, like if you tie it in even with the USP of like having this return policy extended, I think this is a great way to kind of also drive people into the like Christmas funnel, if you so will, a bit earlier. Yeah, very true. Love it. All right, we are already at 45 minutes. So on the dot, I think today we call it a bit earlier. Otherwise, it's going to be another hour, which we don't want to. So we leave it with that. I think, well, I enjoyed it. I think it was some really good stuff in there. Again, I put in like the link. So there's the show notes. New episode will go out probably tomorrow. So you will find all the links, the video embed and whatnot. Thanks so much for dialing in and for participating. As always, please feel free to leave us any feedback, comments. We are also, of course, on the socials. So if you would like to tweet us, Dominique and my handle below. Looking forward to reading from you. Otherwise, if not earlier, then we will kind of have you hopefully back as our guests on the stream next week, Tuesday. Yep, 4 p.m. Dominique, have a fantastic day. And
have a good day.
See you all. Bye-bye.
See you next week. Bye-bye.